Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever loved someone so deeply that when they left, it felt like they took a piece of your soul with them, that no matter how hard you tried to move on, their memory kept haunting every corner of your mind? What if I told you that letting go isn't about forgetting them, it's about finally remembering you? Because the truth is, the person you need to move on from isn't always the one who broke your heart. It's the version of yourself that forgot how powerful you were before they entered your life. And letting go. It sounds simple, doesn't it? Two small words, yet they carry the weight of the world when your heart has been shattered. Because letting go isn't just about saying goodbye to someone, it's about saying goodbye to the version of yourself that existed when they were in your life. It's about learning to breathe again without their presence, to smile without their validation, and to rebuild your sense of peace from the ruins of what you thought would last forever. And the truth is, moving on doesn't begin with forgetting them. It begins with remembering yourself. Because somewhere in the middle of loving them, of trying to make it work, of giving your time, your energy, your heart, you lost touch with who you were before they came along. You built your life around them like they were your sun. And when they left, everything went dark. But the light you've been searching for isn't in them. It's in you. It always has been. And the reason so many people stay stuck after a breakup isn't because the other person is irreplaceable. It's because the loss feels like proof that something was wrong with them. The mind replays the story over and over, searching for where it all went wrong, thinking if you can just find the moment it broke, maybe you could fix it. But here's the hard truth. You don't move on by fixing what ended. You move on by accepting that some chapters are meant to close, no matter how much love you poured into them. And healing starts the day you stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what is this trying to teach me? Every heartbreak, as cruel as it feels, is an invitation to rise, to grow, to become wiser, to love deeper the next time, especially yourself. Sometimes the people who hurt us the most are the ones who push us toward the greatest evolution of our lives. Because pain has a strange way of introducing us to our power. And when you're in the middle of heartbreak, it feels like the world has stopped moving. The days blend together. You replay old messages, scroll through photos, and wonder how someone who once looked at you like you were everything can now treat you like a stranger. And it's okay to feel that. It's okay to cry, to grieve, to be angry. Healing isn't about pretending you're fine. It's about giving yourself permission to not be, because you can't heal what you refuse to feel. But there comes a moment, one quiet, powerful moment, when you decide to stop letting the past define your worth, when you realize that closure doesn't come from their apology or their explanation or them suddenly seeing your value. Closure comes from you choosing to stop seeking validation from the very source that broke your heart. It comes from saying, you no longer have the power to control my peace. That's the day you begin to reclaim yourself. And moving on isn't a straight line. Some days you'll feel strong, and others you'll feel like you've gone backwards. You'll think you're over it, then a song plays, or you smell their perfume, and suddenly the memories flood back. That doesn't mean you've failed. It means you're human. Healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about learning to live with it peacefully. You're not meant to forget them entirely. You're meant to, remember them without losing yourself again. And one of the hardest parts about letting go is realizing that love isn't always enough. You can love someone deeply and still not be right for each other. You can give everything you have and still not be able to make it work. Because love without respect, love without reciprocity, love without emotional safety, it's not sustainable. Sometimes walking away isn't giving up. It's choosing yourself. It's saying, I deserve a love that doesn't make me question my worth. And so often we romanticize what we lost, replaying the highlight reel while ignoring the pain. But you have to remember all of it. The nights you felt invisible, the times your needs were dismissed, the moments you were more anxious than at peace. Don't chase the fantasy your mind has built around them. The person you're missing isn't always the person they truly were. It's the version you created out of hope, the version you believed could love you the way you deserved. And maybe that's what makes moving on so painful, realizing you were in love with potential. You saw what they could be if they healed, if they tried, if they chose you the way you chose them. But you can't fall in love with who someone might become. You have to accept who they are right now. And if who they are doesn't align with the love you need, then letting go isn't a loss, it's liberation. And there's a strength that comes from walking away without bitterness. When you stop needing them to be the villain and yourself to be the victim, when you can look back and say, we were just two people who couldn't meet each other where we needed to. That's not weakness, that's maturity, that's peace. Because healing isn't about rewriting the story to make yourself feel better. It's about seeing it clearly and still choosing to move forward. And when you truly let go, you stop trying to get over them by proving something. You stop waiting for them to see what they lost. You stop trying to win the breakup. Instead, you turn inward. You pour your energy into your own life, your growth, your passions, your happiness. You realize that the most powerful revenge isn't moving on quickly, it's moving on genuinely. It's waking up one morning, smiling, and realizing they no longer hold space in your thoughts. And there's a quiet beauty in the moment you stop checking your phone, stop wondering what they're doing, stop hoping they'll come back, because that's when you finally come back to yourself. You rediscover what makes you feel alive. You reconnect with your friends, your dreams, your sense of adventure. You realize that the world didn't end when they left. It just shifted. It's now giving you a new direction, a new beginning. And then somewhere along that journey, someone will ask you about them and you'll notice something remarkable. You'll feel nothing, not anger, not sadness, not longing, just peace. That's the sign you've truly let go. It's not about forgetting the love. It's about remembering it without pain. It's about being grateful that it happened, even if it didn't last. Because now you understand what you deserve, and you'll never settle for less again. And you are not defined by who left you. You are defined by how you rise after they're gone. Letting go isn't the end. It's the beginning of the most important relationship of your life, the one you have with yourself. And when you finally embrace that, when you stop chasing the one who couldn't love you the way you needed, life has a funny way of sending you someone who can. But by then, you'll realize something powerful. You didn't need them to complete you. You were already whole all along. And you begin to understand that the real journey of moving on is not about time passing, but about transformation. Time alone doesn't heal. It's what you do with that time that changes everything. Because you could wait months or even years hoping the ache fades, but true healing begins when you decide to stop holding on to the story of what could have been and start creating a new one for yourself. That's when you begin to take your power back. And when you've given your heart to someone, walking away feels like abandoning a dream. You invested emotions, memories, and moments that can't be replaced. But clinging to what's gone only keeps you in a loop of pain. You can't rewrite a past chapter and expect a new ending. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself, and even for them, is to stop trying to make sense of what's no longer meant to be. Because peace doesn't come from answers, it comes from acceptance. And acceptance doesn't mean you approve of how it ended. It doesn't mean you're happy about what happened. It simply means you've stopped fighting the reality of it. It's that deep breath after months of resistance when you finally say, it is what it is. And from that moment, you begin to free yourself from the invisible chains that keep you anchored to a version of the past that no longer exists. And as you heal, you'll start to notice something subtle but powerful. Your heart softens. You no longer wake up with the same heaviness. The silence that once felt unbearable starts to feel peaceful. The things that used to remind you of them stop hurting and instead become just things. That's when you know you're evolving, not because you've forgotten, but because you've outgrown the pain. And healing will demand that you confront uncomfortable truths. You'll have to face parts of yourself that you've ignored, the insecurities that made you tolerate less than you deserved, the fears that made you chase love even when it hurt, the loneliness that made you stay even when you knew you should have walked away. It's not about blaming yourself. It's about understanding yourself, because awareness is what transforms heartbreak into growth. And then as you begin to rebuild, you'll realize that moving on isn't about deleting every memory. It's about redefining. Gee, their meaning. That place you used to go together doesn't have to be off limits forever. That song that once broke you doesn't have to stay sad. You get to reclaim those things. You get to decide that your memories no longer have the power to wound you. They now remind you of how far you've come. And there's something profoundly beautiful that happens when you finally let go. You start to attract peace instead of chaos. You stop chasing closure and start creating clarity. You begin to understand that losing them wasn't the end of your story. It was the plot twist that redirected you to a better version of yourself. Because sometimes the universe removes people not to punish you, but to protect you, to make space for what's actually meant for you. And you'll have moments when you miss them, not because you want them back, but because a part of you still wishes it had turned out differently. That's okay. Missing someone doesn't mean you've gone backward. It means you cared deeply. It means your heart is capable of love, and that's something to be proud of. Don't confuse missing them with needing them. The past will tug at you sometimes, but you are no longer anchored there. And you might notice how your world feels quieter now. No more constant checking your phone. No more second guessing every text. No more waiting for validation that never came. That silence you once feared becomes sacred. It's where you rediscover your voice, your peace, your rhythm. You'll begin to realize that solitude isn't loneliness. It's freedom. It's the space where you remember who you are when no one else is influencing your emotions. And you'll start to see how much of yourself you had given away just to keep someone who wasn't ready to match your effort. You'll remember the times you lowered your standards in the name of love. You'll think back to all the times you chose their comfort over your own clarity. And it won't make you bitter, it'll make you wise. Because once you recognize what you sacrificed to keep someone who couldn't meet you halfway, you'll never do it again. And the truth is, you were never asking for too much. You were just asking the wrong person. Love isn't meant to feel like begging for crumbs of attention or walking on eggshells hoping to be enough. Love is mutual effort, consistent care, and emotional safety. So if someone couldn't give you that, it's not because you were unworthy. It's because they were unready. Let that truth set you free. And then as time goes on, you'll find gratitude in the very pain that once felt unbearable, because without it, you wouldn't have discovered your strength. You wouldn't have learned to set boundaries, to trust your intuition, to choose yourself. Every heartbreak leaves behind wisdom if you're willing to see it. Every goodbye teaches you how to say hello to yourself again. And there will come a day when you wake up and realize your first thought isn't about them. You'll feel lighter. You'll look in the mirror and finally recognize the person staring back at you, not as someone broken, but as someone reborn. You'll smile, not because everything is perfect, but because you've made peace with what's imperfect. You'll finally understand that happiness doesn't come from someone choosing you. It comes from you choosing yourself every single day. And then something even more extraordinary happens. You open your heart again. Not out of desperation, but out of abundance. You no longer seek love to fill a void. You share love because you're already whole. You stop fearing heartbreak because you've already proven you can survive it. That's what true letting go gives you. The courage to love again, but wiser this time. And you'll look back one day and realize that the person who left was never meant to be your forever. They were your lesson. They were the mirror that showed you what parts of yourself needed healing, the catalyst that pushed you to grow, the reminder that you deserve more than almost love. You'll thank them not because of how they treated you, but because their absence forced you to find the love within yourself. And you'll notice that your energy changes. You stop needing to prove anything. You no longer chase validation. You no longer explain your worth to people who can't see it. You become magnetic, not because you're trying to attract love, but because you've become love. There's a calmness that replaces the anxiety you once felt, a quiet confidence that radiates from knowing you're enough. And the truth is, letting go isn't forgetting, it's forgiving, not for them, but for you. It's saying, I release you from the version of you I created in my mind. It's no longer waiting for them to come back and make things right. It's realizing you don't need them to. You can make things right on your own. That's real power. And as you move forward, life starts to open up again. You begin to dream differently. You try new things, meet new people, travel to new places. You discover joy in the smallest moments, a sunrise, a conversation, a laugh. You start to see beauty again, not because the world changed, but because you did. You stopped seeing life through the lens of loss and started seeing it through the lens of possibility. And that's what moving on truly means. It's not the absence of pain. It's the presence of purpose. It's choosing to live fully, love fearlessly, and trust that every ending is also a beginning. You don't erase the past. You rise from it. You carry its lessons like armor, not baggage. You realize that the breakup didn't break you. It built you. It stripped away everything that wasn't real so you could finally meet the person you were always meant to become. And there will come a moment when you look back on everything and realize that letting go wasn't a single decision. It was 1,000 small choices you made every day. Every time you refused to text them, every time you stopped yourself from checking their social media, every time you caught yourself reminiscing and instead redirected your thoughts to something that served you. That's what real strength looks like. It's not loud. It's not glamorous. It's quiet resilience. It's the daily act of choosing peace over pain. And because healing doesn't happen in one grand moment of clarity, it happens in those subtle shifts. In the mornings, you finally stop waking up with a heavy chest. In the nights, you fall asleep without replaying old conversations. In the random moments, you realize you went hours without thinking of them. It's not about forgetting. It's about your heart slowly loosening its grip until one day it no longer hurts to hold on. And you'll begin to notice how differently you carry yourself. The energy that was once consumed by missing them becomes redirected into rebuilding yourself. You start showing up for your goals again. You reconnect with friends you drifted away from. You begin to take care of your body, your mind, your spirit. You realize that self-love isn't about bubble baths or nice quotes. It's about self-discipline. It's about choosing not to stay stuck in a story that no longer empowers you. And with time, you start to understand that love was never supposed to complete you. That's where so many of us go wrong. We hand someone else the responsibility for our happiness and then feel lost when they walk away. But true healing is remembering that you were whole before they arrived. You didn't need them to make you complete. You chose to share your completeness with them. And when they left, they didn't take anything from you that you can't rebuild. And sometimes we confuse attachment for love. We think missing someone means we were meant to be with them. But missing them is just your mind longing for familiarity. It's your comfort zone begging you to return. You don't miss them. You miss who you were when you did not have to face yourself. You miss the illusion of security they provided. But real growth happens when you stop reaching for what feels familiar and start reaching for what feels right. And there's a power that awakens in you when you stop chasing, when you stop trying to fix someone who doesn't want to be fixed or convince someone to love you the way you deserve, when you stop trying to make someone see your worth and you simply embody it instead. That's when your energy shifts. That's when you go from being a person waiting to be chosen to being someone who chooses. And you start to see how much time you wasted waiting for something that was never meant to stay. You realize that the love you gave wasn't wasted. It was a reflection of who you are. The fact that you could love so deeply, give so fully, and care so honestly, that's your power. Don't let someone's inability to receive that make you believe it was wrong to give it. The love you gave wasn't too much. It just wasn't meant for them. And then as you continue to heal, you'll begin to see heartbreak differently. You'll stop seeing it as a wound and start seeing it as a teacher. It teaches you patience, empathy, boundaries. It shows you where you need to grow and what you truly value in a partner. It refines you. Because every heartbreak strips away what's inauthentic. It burns away the illusions until all that's left is truth. And that truth becomes the foundation for the love you'll one day build again, stronger, wiser, purer. And there will still be moments of loneliness, but loneliness doesn't have to be the enemy. It can be the place where you build intimacy with yourself. It's where you learn to enjoy your own company, to find comfort in your silence. It's where you realize you don't need someone beside you to feel complete. You just need to be present with yourself, because when you become comfortable in your solitude, no one can ever make you feel empty again. And you'll look around and realize how much life there still is to live. There's laughter you haven't heard yet, sunsets you haven't watched, people you haven't met. There are dreams waiting to be chased, passions waiting to be rediscovered. Heartbreak doesn't have to close your heart. It can open it to a deeper experience of life. Because once you've survived losing something you thought you couldn't live without, you stop fearing what you can lose. You start embracing what you can create. And that's when you become unstoppable, because nothing scares you anymore. Not rejection, not failure, not heartbreak. You've already been broken open and rebuilt yourself piece by piece. You've learned that endings aren't the end of you. They're the beginning of the version of you that doesn't settle for less. The version that knows peace is more valuable than attention, and self-respect is more powerful than romance. And people will notice your change. They'll see the glow that comes when someone has made peace with their past. They'll feel the calm confidence that comes from knowing your worth. And they'll wonder how you did it, how you moved on without bitterness, how you let go without losing your softness. But they won't understand that it wasn't easy. They won't see the nights you cried in silence or the mornings you had to force yourself to get up. They'll only see the strength that came from those moments. And maybe one day the person who left will see it too. They'll see the version of you that no longer needs them, and it will shake them. Not because they want to come back, but because they'll realize what they lost. But by then, it won't matter. You won't feel the need to prove anything. You'll have already built a life so full that their absence no longer creates a void. That's what real healing feels like. It's not revenge, it's peace. And you'll realize that closure was never about a final conversation or an apology. It was about you finally saying, I accept that I may never get the answers. It's about finding peace in not knowing. It's about trusting that what didn't work out was simply clearing space for something better. You'll stop replaying what you could have done differently and start being proud of what you did do. You loved, you tried, you gave it your all. And that's something to celebrate, not regret. And at some point, you'll look at their name and feel nothing. You'll see an old photo and smile without pain. You'll hear that song and maybe even sing along. Because you'll know that your story didn't end when they left. It simply took a new turn. You'll see that life had to remove what wasn't aligned so you could make space for something greater. And that realization will make every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of heartbreak worth it. And you'll learn to love differently next time, not from fear, but from freedom. You won't love to fill a void, but to share your abundance. You won't lose yourself in someone else's world. You'll build a world together while keeping your own intact. Because once you've learned how to let go, you stop clinging out of fear. You love without attachment. You care without control. You give without losing yourself. And that's the beauty of truly moving on. It doesn't harden you. It softens you into strength. It teaches you that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's courage. It shows you that endings are not failures, but transitions. And it reminds you that you are not defined by who stayed or who left, but by who you become when you decide to rise again. And because you will rise, you already are. Every time you choose not to look back, every time you decide to focus on what's ahead, every time you trust that your heart will heal, you rise. And with every rise, you get closer to the version of yourself that doesn't just survive heartbreak, but thrives because of it. And there comes a point in your healing where you stop seeing the past as something to escape and start seeing it as something to learn from. The same memories that once brought tears begin to bring clarity. You start to understand why things unfolded the way they did. You recognize patterns, how you gave too much, how you ignored red flags, how you silenced your intuition in the name of love. And instead of judging yourself for it, you begin to thank yourself for surviving it. You realize that even when you didn't know better, you were doing your best with the love and awareness you had at the time. And it's in this stage that you begin to rewrite the narrative. The story is no longer about what they did to you. It becomes about what you learned because of them. The heartbreak that once defined you becomes the catalyst that refined you. You stop seeing yourself as the victim of your story and start seeing yourself as the author. That shift in perspective changes everything. It's where the true letting go happens, not when the pain disappears, but when the pain stops controlling the meaning you give it. And then something remarkable happens. You begin to feel grateful, not for the hurt, but for the growth it gave you. You start to appreciate the strength it built within you, the wisdom it planted, the awareness it sharpened. You realize that without that heartbreak, you might still be settling. You might still be lost in someone else's potential, mistaking chaos for passion. You might still be chasing love instead of attracting it. So you begin to see the breakup not as a loss, but as a turning point, a moment that redirected you toward your highest self. And you learn that letting go isn't about detachment from emotion, but about releasing the illusion of control. You can't force someone to stay, you can't make them love you the way you love them, and you can't rewrite a connection that's already served its purpose. What you can do is honor what it was while allowing it to end with grace. You can bless it, or what it taught you, and release it for what it cannot give you. That's the quiet power of surrender, not giving up, but letting go of what's no longer aligned. And you'll start to notice that peace feels better than intensity. You'll stop craving the highs and lows of toxic love, because you've learned that real love doesn't need to hurt to feel real. It doesn't drain you. It grounds you. It doesn't make you question your worth. It reminds you of it. Once you've experienced the chaos of heartbreak, your soul begins to crave calm. You stop chasing butterflies and start seeking consistency. You stop mistaking drama for depth and realize that the most meaningful connections are the ones that bring you stillness, not storms. And as your heart heals, you'll also begin to rebuild trust, first with yourself. You'll realize that it wasn't them breaking your heart that hurt the most. It was the moment you stopped trusting yourself after it happened. You'll remember all the times you ignored your gut, all the times you justified their behavior, all the times you said yes when your heart whispered no. And that's okay. You forgive yourself for staying too long. You forgive yourself for wanting to believe in someone who wasn't ready to meet you where you stood. Because forgiveness is not about erasing the past, it's about releasing the shame that keeps you tied to it. And once you forgive yourself, something inside you softens. You stop carrying the weight of regret. You stop replaying the what-ifs. You begin to live in the present again. And that's where life starts to unfold in beautiful, unexpected ways. Opportunities start showing up. New connections begin to form. The laughter you thought you'd never feel again returns, lighter and freer. You realize you've made it through the storm and not just survived it, but transformed because of it. And you'll see how heartbreak stripped you of everything false, your illusions, your dependencies, your need for external validation, and left you with something pure, yourself. The raw, unfiltered version of you that doesn't need to pretend, that doesn't need to chase, that doesn't need to prove. And from that place of authenticity, you begin to attract differently. You no longer attract people who feed your insecurities. You attract those who match your healed energy. People who see your worth without you having to convince them. People who love from abundance, not from need. And you start to set boundaries, not from fear, but from self-respect. You no longer settle for almost love or half effort. You stop entertaining people who confuse you. You stop giving access to anyone who hasn't earned it. Because you've learned that protecting your peace is not selfish, it's sacred. It's how you ensure that your love, when given again, is given from a full cup, not a broken one. And yet, even as you move forward, the past still lingers in subtle ways. It doesn't haunt you, it humbles you. It keeps you grounded in gratitude for how far you've come. You might still think of them sometimes, but it's no longer with pain, it's with understanding. You'll remember moments of laughter, of love, of connection, and instead of wishing things had been different, you'll silently thank them for their role in your growth. Because not all people are meant to stay forever. Some are simply meant to awaken us. And the beauty of this process is that the more you heal, the more you expand. The love that once felt like it was dying inside of you begins to pour into other areas of your life. You'll notice you love your family more deeply. You're more patient with friends. You become more compassionate toward others' pain because you've lived it. You begin to move through the world with an open heart again, not because you haven't been hurt, but because you've learned that closing off is not protection, it's imprisonment. And one day love will find you again, not because why? Al chased it, but because you became it. It will come quietly, without the chaos, without the uncertainty. It will feel safe, calm, and grounding. And you'll know it's right because it won't demand you to abandon yourself to keep it. You won't have to shrink, change, or prove. You'll recognize it not by the rush it brings, but by the peace it creates. And when that happens, you'll smile, not just because you found love again, but because you'll know you've finally found yourself. And you'll understand then that letting go wasn't about losing someone, it was about finding your way home. It was about remembering that love isn't something you chase, it's something you embody. The more you pour that love into yourself, the more the right people are drawn to it. Because real love doesn't arrive to complete you, it arrives to complement the wholeness you've already built. And in that realization, you'll see that every heartbreak, every tear, every sleepless night was preparing you for this version of yourself, the version that doesn't settle, doesn't chase, and doesn't beg for love. The version that knows that walking away from what doesn't serve you isn't weakness, it's wisdom. The version that finally understands that moving on isn't about leaving love behind, it's about evolving beyond the version of you that once thought you needed it to survive. And you'll wake up one morning, stretch, and feel that quiet confidence inside you, the kind that comes when your peace no longer depends on another person. You'll realize that you've stopped waiting for the past to make sense. You've stopped waiting for the perfect apology. You've stopped waiting for someone else to give you closure because you've given it to yourself. And that's when you'll truly know you've let go, not just of them, but of the part of yourself that believed you couldn't be whole without them. And in that, it's the freedom you were always looking for.